Let me ask you something that might sound a little strange. Are you your brain or something that uses your brain? Most of us have never even considered that question. We just assume that what the brain does, the thoughts, the feelings, the memories, the reactions, that's just us. That's who we are. But what if the brain is more like a tool? An incredible, sophisticated, remarkable tool, but a tool nonetheless. And what if you are the one holding it? Let's take a closer look at what this tool actually looks like. The prefrontal cortex. This is the part of your brain sitting just behind your forehead. Think of it as your executive, the manager of the whole operation. It handles reasoning, decision making, and impulse control. It's the part that says, wait, let me think about this before I react. Now, when you're calm, rested, and feeling safe, this part works beautifully. But when you're stressed or overwhelmed, it's one of the first things that go offline, which is why we sometimes say or do things under pressure that we later look back on and think to ourselves, that wasn't like me at all, you know? And you're right, it wasn't you, it was your brain under pressure. Deep inside your brain sits a tiny almond shaped structure called the amygdala. This is your ancient alarm system, one of the most oldest parts of the brain we have. Its entire job is to scan for danger and trigger a response. Fear, anxiety, that sudden rush of panic. That's your amygdala doing exactly what it was designed to do. For instance, if you were just about to cross the road and you heard this screeching sound of a car and you just looked and caught sight of it, you would immediately jump back to save yourself from the danger of that speeding car, from being hit by it. That's the amygdala in action. The problem, it can't always tell the difference between a genuine threat and a stressful email, between a predator and a difficult conversation. It just fires. And suddenly your whole system is in flight or fight mode over something that isn't actually dangerous at all. Now, understanding this doesn't make the fear go away, but it does mean that you can start to recognize it for what it is. Your tool responding to a perceived threat, not necessarily a real one. Now, tucked inside your frontal lobe is a small region called Broca's area, and I believe it was named after this fella who first discovered this area in the brain. So, this is what converts your thoughts into spoken words. Ever had a moment where you know exactly what you wanted to say, but the words just wouldn't come? That's Broca's area struggling. Usually because the brain is overwhelmed. It's also why, when we're very emotional, we sometimes can't speak clearly. The tool is overloaded, and that's exactly what constantly happened to me growing up with this distressing stammer which I had back then. Now, at the back and the base of your brain sits the cerebellum. Now, this handles coordination, balance, and movement. It's all those physical things that you do without thinking about, like walking, driving, riding a bike. But once learned, these get handed over to the cerebellum and they just run automatically in the background. So that's a perfect example of the brain doing its job quietly and efficiently, so that the conscious you doesn't have to think about it, doesn't have to think about every single step. Then we come to the hippocampus and memory on views and new stuff. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. The hippocampus, sitting inside the temporal lobe, has long been considered the brain's memory center, the place where memories are stored and retrieved. And there's solid evidence for this. Damage to the hippocampus genuinely affects memory. But here's what the emerging research is beginning to suggest, and this is where science gets fascinating. Some researchers now propose that the brain may not actually store memories the way that we've always thought. Instead, it may act like a receiver, an antenna, tuning into information from a wider field of consciousness rather than filing it away locally like a hard drive. This is still being explored today. It's not yet mainstream, but it raises a question that I find extraordinary. If your memories aren't stored inside your brain, then where exactly are you? And that brings us back to where we started, you or your brain. Your brain is extraordinary. It regulates your body, processes your senses, manages your emotions, produces your speech, and receives and stores your memories, maybe. But it does this simultaneously every second of every day without you even having to ask it to. So here's what I want you to sit with. Every single thing we've just talked about, the prefrontal cortex, the amygdala, Broca's area, the cerebellum, the hippocampus, these are all functions, processes, and mechanisms. And a mechanism needs something to operate it. So, if the brain is the tool, who is holding it? That question alone is worth sitting with because the answer just might change everything about how you see yourself. If this opened up something for you today, then come and join us inside the Inner Rewrite. The link's below, and there's also a free guide. You are the experiment. It's all part of the journey of getting to know yourself. See you in the next one.